With Legion Remix now out, I'm reminded of the original release and all of the new features from Mythic Plus to the Mage Tower. Legion brought about so many changes to the game, but one rises above them all. One that might just be the greatest feature of Legion, but also brought on the downfall of later expansions. After an expansion of divided opinion, the feelings of isolation in garrisons, and the burnout from lack of content due to the shorter patch cycle and masses of cut content, many players were walking away from World of Warcraft in favour of other games like Star Wars: The Old Republic. This is until the start of 2016, with whispers of the next expansion. People were both excited and hesitant. With the flop of Warlords of Draenor, we were all unsure of what would come next, and if anyone would even stick around to find out. Legion, the expansion that was hyped to fix all of the game's issues, bringing about new changes that would appease the growing disdain in the player base. A return to form, as well as the Burning Legion. Once again, the threat looms over all of Azeroth, and heroes are needed to fend back the hordes of demons on the Broken Realms. The hype for the next expansion was real, and artifact weapons were at the centre of it all. An unexpected and slightly contentious decision to give players lore-significant weapons like Doomhammer, blades forged from the Broken Frostmaul, and the Ashbringer. But for the first time, players were able to freely wield legendary weapons, which gave new abilities and greater power than any previous weapon. Looking back, artifact weapons drew people into the idea of an expansion worth playing, but did it work? On August 30th, 2016, Legion releases. The return of the Burning Legion and the start of a new era. The Broken Isles awaits, and so do the artifact weapons. Dalaran is now moved from the frozen peaks of Northrend to the contested Broken Isles, with 4 new leveling zones: Azuna, Val'sharah, High Mountain and Stormheim, with Suramar restricted for max level. But before you can venture out to any of these 4 zones, you are recruited to help fight the Burning Legion, build up a power base, and get the tools you need to bring an end to the Legion invasion. Here is where you select the artifact weapon you wish to pursue. There are 36 different artifact weapons, one for each spec, each with different abilities and appearances. For now, you must choose one. You're tasked with finding and collecting the weapons from all around Azeroth. These quests are relatively quick, varied and fun. It showcases some of the class and spec specific abilities you have to overcome challenges, as well as re-explore Azeroth. Once you've completed your quest and collected your artifact weapon, you are introduced to the Artifact Forge, and can collect the first of many traits. The first being a new ability that changes your playstyle, like Wake of Ashes for the Retribution Paladin, or Void Torrent for the Shadow Priest. Armed with your artifact weapon, you are able to pick which zone you want to start your journey. While leveling, you will collect artifact power from quests, treasures and other PvE and PvP activities. This does what you expect, it powers your artifact. Artifact power, or AP, will be a consumable item in your bags that you can use to empower your weapon. Artifact power is tracked both in the artifact weapon and on the AP bar, similar to an XP bar. Once filled, you are able to pick another trait within the artifact. This is one way to increase the power of your weapon. Another way is through relics. Similar to gems, up to 3 relics can be slotted into your artifact weapon that increases its item level and power. Additionally, each relic can increase the rank of minor artifact traits, allowing for small amounts of min-maxing by trying to get the best relic for your spec. There are 10 different relic types, and each weapon has a variety of each. For example, the Ashbringer can have 1 fire and 2 holy. While leveling, you only have access to 2 relic slots, but unlock the third by completing your class order hall campaign. Now you've reached level 102, you can return to your class order hall and continue the class campaign. At this level, it also unlocks the remaining artifact weapons for your class to collect. You can select your second weapon to collect, then third and fourth for druids. You still must complete the introductory quest line, where you venture out to collect the weapons, but once complete you can switch specs and weapons freely. While this freedom is great, this is where the cracks do begin to show. Artifact power does not transfer between weapons, so if you started out as a Frost Mage at level 105, decided to switch to Arcane, then all the AP you earned for Ebb and Chill was wasted. Despite Blizzard's best efforts, this does become a reoccurring issue throughout the expansion. Now you've hit max level, you unlock another feature called Artifact Knowledge. This is designed to help with the acquisition of artifact power. You unlock the ability to spend 500 order resources to produce artifact research notes. This increases the amount of artifact power you earn from all sources. This improves maintaining multiple artifact weapons as well as filling out the rest of your tree. However, the first work order for the research notes takes 5 days to complete. There is a catch-up mechanic built in that reduces the amount of time it takes proportionately based on how far the character is in the research progress. and how much time has passed since the launch of Legion. At the start of the expansion, there is 25 levels of artifact knowledge, which apply to each individual character, and any alt characters would have their own artifact knowledge that need to be learned over time. While there were flaws with the artifact weapon, people were still enjoying the benefits of them, except the top raiders who needed as much AP as possible to stay competitive. The first major changes to artifact weapons came just over 4 months after release and 2.5 months since the Return to Karazhan patch. Players were now used to the artifact weapon and their connected systems and the struggles associated with it. This is when Blizzard comes in to make one of the systems just a bit better. Previously, the only catch-up mechanic for artifact knowledge was reducing the time it takes to complete the work orders, but in the new patch they implemented a much better system. Firstly, they introduced new bind on account items that could be sent to alts to immediately get them to higher artifact knowledge levels. For those just starting out in Legion, there was a repeatable quest that allowed you to instantly turn in order hall resources for artifact knowledge up to level 15. This helped bridge the gap for alts and new players trying to complete their artifact trees. This made artifact power much more accessible, but reaching higher levels of artifact knowledge and power was still incredibly time consuming. This is until the Tomb of Sargeras brings a host of new content, especially for artifacts. Artifact knowledge levels increased from 25 all the way to 40. Originally it was 50, but then later was dropped down to 40 in a hotfix. After unlocking the Broken Shore, the quest Seeking Lost Knowledge can be completed to increase your artifact knowledge to level 26 and allow you to increase this further. At level 25 you get a 25,000% increased AP gains. However, at level 26 it jumps dramatically to a whopping 100,000%. Anyone under level 25 artifact knowledge would be able to instantly complete work orders to catch up so they can get the huge increases with level 26. Along with the improvements to artifact knowledge also comes the empowered artifact traits. Once you've completed the Assault on Broken Shore questline, you can empower the artifact weapon, unlocking a new set of traits. This replaces the original 20-point infinite trait that improves damage and stamina with the Concordance of the Legion 4, along with 4 new traits. To add to these trees more, all existing traits that had 3 ranks now have an additional 1 that you can learn. The huge jump in AP acquisition was really needed with the increase in traits and ranks, and the ability to quickly catch up to 25 really helped everyone get straight into the new patch content. But more changes would come that would completely change the system. But before that, we've yet to speak of a major feature that was in the expansion right from the beginning, but was added to in this patch. Even before Legion was released, we knew there'd be multiple variants of the artifact weapons that you could collect from various means. Every artifact has a base appearance that you get when you acquire the weapon. By completing additional tasks, you can unlock different colour variants of the appearance. There are a total of 6 appearances, each with 4 colour variants available. The alternate colours for the first appearance are easy to collect. Recovering a Pillar of Creation, Light's Heart, and completing the first major campaign effort with your Order Hall is all that's needed. The second appearance can be collected by completing your Order Hall campaign, which also unlocks 2 of the variant colours. To collect the third, you need to complete the achievement This Side Up, which is by obtaining 8 of the rare archaeological finds, which requires you to complete the archaeology quests available in Dalaran. This quest rotates every 2 weeks, so it can take quite a while to complete. The third appearance is a reward for completing the Balance of Power questline, which gets you to complete 8 mythic dungeons, and both the Emerald Nightmare and the Nighthold raids. The variant colours can be just as difficult, requiring you to complete Unleashed Monstrosities, where you defeat 8 of the monstrous world bosses, completing a Mythic Plus dungeon at level 5 or above, and completing the Glory of the Legion Hero dungeon meta achievement. To make this appearance more difficult to obtain is that during Legion this was a character specific unlock that would need to be repeated on any alt characters if you wanted the appearance on another class. However, in Dragonflight, 3 expansions later, they made it account wide, meaning if you completed it once, you unlock it for all classes. The fourth appearance is a reward for reaching different brackets of PvP honour levels. Reaching level 10 awards you the base appearance, and level 30, 50 and 80 unlocks each colour. The fifth brings us back to patch 7.2. After unlocking the empowered artifact trait and artifact knowledge level 26, you unlock access to the Mage Tower. After completing a spec specific questline, the Mage Tower allows each spec to enter the combat challenge, which upon completion rewards you with a new artifact appearance. These challenges can be really difficult and require a lot of practice. After collecting the appearance, the colour variants can be unlocked by defeating Heroic Kill Jaden, winning 10 rated battlegrounds, and completing 10 different Legion dungeons. Finally, potentially the best appearance for most classes, and quite an interesting one, the hidden artifact appearances. At the start of Legion, these hidden appearances were added to the game with very little information given on how to acquire them. However, players found them from various means like dungeons, raids, withered training, and even random drops from old raid bosses. The Ashbringer has the most complex secret questline required to collect their hidden artifact. This all starts by finding 2 fishing books, killing Nefarian and Blackwing Lair, travelling all across the world, and even having to fish up the Shard of Darkness. This makes it seem easy, but I have done it and it took me a lot of time and a lot of fishing. Once you've acquired the hidden appearance for an artifact, you can earn the colour variants by completing 30 Legion dungeons, 200 world quests, and defeating 1000 enemy players. That's all the appearances for the artifact weapons. It's a great feature for collectors or people who just want to mix up what their weapon looks like, and to this day people still go back and collect appearances for transmog. Argus brought even more changes as expected, but the change to the artifact knowledge was finally what players were needing. Artifact knowledge all through Legion was something that players had to increase and keep on top of. However, with patch 7.3, this was made so much easier. All characters now start at rank 41 at the start of the patch. Each week, everyone's artifact knowledge increases automatically up to level 55. Any new characters reaching max level now automatically reach whatever rank everyone else is at. This was a huge game changer to standardise the AP gains. This made it so much easier for people to catch up and get higher power levels. 14 weeks after patch 7.3 dropped, everyone was at a whopping 630 million 100% increase. Finally, it took until the final major patch, but artifact knowledge was in a much better position. People weren't penalised for not playing as much or missing a week. While the other catch-up mechanics helped, it always had some people at a disadvantage. These increases also helped a bit when switching specs. While it was still an issue separating the AP between weapons, it was certainly easier to manage. Along with these updates, we also got the Netherlight Crucible, something I'd completely forgotten what it did, but was actually an update to artifact relics, something that up until this point was relatively unchanged. After unlocking the Netherlight Crucible on one character, it unlocks for your whole account, which does require you to complete almost all of the Argus storyline, but unlocks additional options within each relic. Every relic will now be given a random 3-tier tree. The first tier is always Netherlight Fortification, increasing the item level of your weapon by 5. The second tier is a random void or light choice, which can do a variety of things like increase secondary stats, or add chance to your spells and abilities to have an additional effect, like extra damage or give you a shield. This choice is important as it locks you into a path and limits the final tier to only 2 choices. The final tier consists of 3 choices, but now you'd only have access to 2. These are class specific and are traits that are present on relics normally, allowing you to have up to an additional 3 boosts to minor traits at any one time. To help with picking a relic, you can also preview the tree to help decide if it will actually be an upgrade. The Netherlight Crucible is both a good and bad thing. It means doing another thing after getting a new item, which is the same reason that Reforging was removed. However, it does add further choice with more trait options that you were previously limited to. Overall, patch 7.3 brought out some great improvements, but so late into the expansion cycle, did it really matter? In short, yes. While we were getting closer to the end of Legion, patch 7.3 had a lot of content, and was closing off the Burning Legion story started way back in Warcraft and even further back in the lore. People were returning to understand how the story would conclude as well as these exact features. Setting people on a level playing field like this with artifact knowledge was a significant improvement compared to the original state, which involved time gating to even begin to catch up. It both didn't take away from those who consistently played, but didn't punish those who didn't get to play as much or took breaks throughout the expansion. Yes, the Netherlight Crucible did add more complexity, which, knowing Blizzard, it was expected, especially with the lack of changes or updates to relics, but it did make you feel more powerful having an extra 3 ranks to minor traits. Overall, patch 7.3 delivered when it came to artifact weapons, but it was somewhat short-lived. With Battle for Azeroth announced and soon approaching, we knew we would lose our weapons we've been building upon for the whole expansion now. At the end of Vantaurus, the Burning Throne, Sargeras was imprisoned at the seat of the Pantheon, but before the Titans could take him, he plunged his sword into Azeroth. Sargeras was gone, but his sword remained. The only thing to prevent Azeroth's destruction and seal the wound was the artifact weapons. Players had to sacrifice their weapons to save Azeroth. Completing this questline empowered all artifact weapons on your account to now be at the highest power possible. However, they were unstable and would stay this way until the BFA pre-patch, where they lost all of their power and were retired. This was a very bittersweet moment for players who had used these weapons throughout the entire expansion, from the original hype all the way to the end. Most artifact weapons are lost in a bank somewhere. Some would say this was a good send-off, but many were unhappy, especially hunters as they lost Hattie, the secondary pet tied to the Beastmaster's artifact weapon, so much so that a petition was started to save Hattie. Luckily, in BFA, Hattie was saved so hunters could still have Hattie as a pet. From an objective standpoint, this was a good way to remove the artifact weapons. It both ended the story and helped lead us to the next expansion. Did I like it? Not exactly. It felt cheap to strip them of their power and throw them away, to the point where in the War Within, you can literally find the Ashbringer in a bin. Artifact weapons began the era of borrowed power. The launch of BFA introduced the Heart of Azeroth and Azerite armor to directly replace the artifact weapons, which fell incredibly flat. It had the same issues with artifact power that Legion had, but with considerably worse benefits. With Azerite essences added later to supplement the major traits from artifact weapons. While it needed improvement, it began to bloat the system, especially after the addition of corruptions in the final patch, which added new effects and passives through corrupted gear. While a good system, having multiple borrowed power systems felt like quite a lot. The Heart of Azeroth was quite disliked and a huge step down from the original weapons. Shadowlands continued this theme with Covenants giving abilities and powers through new artifact talent trees found in Soulbinds. This was a different but similar approach we'd grown used to, and it was stale. Made worse by legendaries, which instead of being rare drops like it was in Legion or past expansions, it was crafted with a currency only acquired through Torghast. A seemingly optional roguelike gameplay element added to Shadowlands made mandatory for your best piece of gear. To then add a gold sink on top of it, as you can guess, it wasn't well received, like most of the expansion. Blizzard clearly saw the popularity of Legion and attributed that to the systems they introduced. Yes, Mythic Plus was one of them and has continued to do really well, but borrowed power might have been one that they should have took more reflection on before attempting to bring back. Dragonflight put an end to the constant need for borrowed power, mainly through the reintroduction of talent trees that overhauled power as a whole. Reverting back to these traditional means was exactly what people wanted for their progression. While in cases like Legion it worked well, the borrowed power systems felt good, it was a change of pace and incentivized you to play to level up your artifact weapon, collect appearances and use new abilities that came with them. While it wasn't perfect in Legion, if this type of system was used in isolation instead of being repeated time and time again, it would have been revered as an amazing feature that people would have wanted back. However, BFA and Shadowlands really muddied the water and officially put people off the idea of borrowed power as a whole. I want to remind you that BFA and Shadowlands shouldn't take away from what Legion was. We will no doubt experience it again when Classic reaches Legion, and we can see for ourselves how it worked, the pros, the cons, and how it felt to have a cool weapon that gains power with you. I can't conclude all of this without touching on Legion remakes. We get the opportunity to return to Legion in the fast-paced and fun environment of remakes. This time, artifact weapons return in a completely different state. Instead of using the old artifact trees, everyone has the same new tree. It starts with a variety of smaller traits that feed into the fast nature of remakes, like making you run faster or removing fall damage. It then splits into 5 options, split by 5 different abilities which can change the way you play. There is also a capstone infinite trait which increases your power the more you put into it. This is a much more interesting system than previously seen in MOP remakes. but does remove the individuality found in the original artifact weapons. I can't criticise this too much as this is remix and not a permanent system. It appears to be working well, with artifact power now dubbed infinite power being acquired the same way as before, but the new infinite knowledge is earned through completing achievements like completing each raid or all the quests in the zone. This change to knowledge is brilliant as instead of locking it behind a timer, it's directly related to completing content, all of which is incredibly easy for any skill level. Seeing as we're in the early stages of Legion Remix, this will likely change nearer to the end when they implement catch-up mechanics. But at the time of writing this, the system isn't too bad. And that's been artifact weapons, how they worked in Legion and the impact they had on following expansions. It's interesting how Legion changed the game so much, some parts for good and some not so much. Let me know your thoughts on artifact weapons, if you remember them fondly or if you were glad to get rid of them.